Hey everyone, it's Alex here, and on today's episode of the YaBonks Show, I have two special guests with me. I have Alqasim and Justin from AMBO Pipeline, and AMBO Pipeline is it's an actual oil pipeline that is being built that's going to go through Albania, Macedonia, and Bulgaria, and it is unlike any other DeFi project that I've seen so far that I've been out here working with blockchain technology and reporting on these things. So Alqasim and Justin, would you guys introduce yourselves briefly to the audience and kind of give us an overview of what AMBO Pipeline is? Alqasim, do you want to go first?
Hello, my role is the CSO at AMBO. I've been involved for close to a year. I'm Justin, and I'll let Justin introduce himself.
Yeah, hi. I'm Justin. I'm one of the main shareholders of the company. So a little bit about AMBO. AMBO is what we class as a bypass oil pipeline. And the idea of it is around Istanbul, you've got the Turkish Straits, which is a very narrow choke point in the transportation of oil from Kazakhstan all the way out to Western Europe and America. So the idea of the AMBO pipeline is to transport oil from Bulgaria, loading on at the ports at Burgas on the Black Sea, through North Macedonia, into Albania, and out at a place called Vlorë, which is a city, which is also a natural deep sea harbour. The idea of it mainly is you can go from a small oil tanker in Bulgaria side to load onto an ultra-large cargo. So you can get 2.5 of these smaller tankers into a big one. The pipeline is going to be approximately 815 kilometers long and a 36-inch pipe running about 900,000 barrels a day.
Wow, and that's pretty intense for the DeFi world, what I'm used to. So let me show you guys, everybody who's watching. Here's what he's talking about with the pipeline going from Bulgaria all the way to Vlore in Albania, and it goes through Macedonia here. And here's the Istanbul Strait that he was talking about, I believe. And
yes,
so it's the narrowest strait in the wide, and it's one of the busiest straits in the world.
Is that what got
if you scroll down
in 2020? That was that the strait that was congested with shipping vessels.
Correct.
For quite a while, and it backed up everything around the world.
No, you're thinking of the one over at Panama, I think it was, wasn't it? We had the ship that got stuck sideways.
And I think
Panama Canal.
I think there were 2 incidents actually, and I think one was over here.
There has been some incidents over in the Bosporus. They've had it, it just takes a small collision. There has been an oil tanker that was involved in a big collision, and it could have turned very nasty, but it didn't in the end. But where you are at Istanbul, if you carry on the map further down, you've got the Dardanelles after that. Zoom in, back up. That bit there is the Dardanelles as well. That's another narrow spot as well. Not as narrow, but that whole area is what we're trying to avoid by taking it through the pipeline.
Yeah.
So this
project, it goes through. It counts both of them. Yeah, it goes through both straits. Route. They have to go the Dardanelles and then the Bosporus, and it would eliminate the need of the ships to go through that area.
Interesting. So this project, if you guys succeed, would ensure some redundancies and stability and robustness for the energy infrastructure in the entire region, correct?
Yeah, correct. But what it also does is the economy of scale. So from in the Black Sea, you've only got a small tanker because you can't get the massive tankers through Istanbul. So by unloading in Bulgaria 2 or 3 of these small tankers, we get it across to Albania. They can then load into one big tanker. So they're saving money on shipping. They're saving money on or time, because it can be easily a 5-day saving, up to 2-3 weeks if there's bad storms in the Black Sea.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So
That's the big thing, is something as simple as like you're immediately days, if not weeks in delay. And if the bad weather makes a ship collide with another ship, then suddenly you're into the weeks easily.
So are there any other pipelines? Like I see another one potentially right here being proposed. I don't know what year this picture is, but is there anything else like this right now, or is that is the Black Sea dependent right now on either tankers bringing the oil out or utilizing like Russian pipelines?
No. So what you have at the moment is the majority of the oil comes from Kazakhstan over on the right-hand side of your map. Okay. So at the moment, there is some oil that goes from across the Caspian Sea in the middle to the left. Okay, that goes across to Azerbaijan and also Georgia, just a little bit further down. Now, there is a pipeline that goes down and through Turkey, okay, and then out through that way. But the problem is, again, they can't get the ultra-large container tankers into that area. So some of the oil also goes from Kazakhstan across the top to the Russia to the top of the Black Sea. And that's going through what they call a Russian CPC pipeline. Now, obviously, when Ukraine started, that whole thing shut down. Okay. Now, the downside with the CPC pipeline is they're getting pure high-grade oil from Kazakhstan, and the Russians at the moment blend it with cheaper Russian oil to turn it into an Urals blend crude, which is a lower grade. So AMBO at the moment, we're not doing anything to help avoid that part of the world of using the Russian pipeline. That's where the future two other pipelines that we want to do would get rid of the need of that side of the Russian pipeline. It would go straight from Kazakhstan through to the Black Sea, through to us out in Albania.
Okay. So
that's the full.
So later on,
that's the full route we spoke about yesterday. Yeah.
Okay, and we'll touch on that. You guys have bigger plans even beyond this initial pipeline.
Yes.
AMBO is just the beginning, and this would allow you to connect and get the oil out of Kazakhstan and these other countries without having to basically cut the oil with Russian crude. Is that correct?
Correct.
So, Alqasim, why have you decided to go with a blockchain solution with AMBO Pipeline Limited when it doesn't seem like you would need to come to the Web3 decentralized finance blockchain world to get funding?
Well, it is very simple. What we want to do is we want to be the first oil and gas / traditional business to really make a pivot into the blockchain world. And the easiest way for us to do that is to make sure we approach it the right way. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an NFT loan just to make sure we don't fall under securities. We're not promising people returns. There's obviously a risk in every single business, even if you're just loaning money to somebody. We just want to be clear, get all of the disclaimers out the way. What we have is we have all the pre-approvals set in place, like I said. It's working in 2 phases. In order for us to activate the first phase to get moving forward, it's going to cost us probably about $2 million over the next 30 to 60 days. And the fastest and cheapest way to do this is through the blockchain. If you look at short-term loans, you look at operating loans, we didn't really want to do a loan to start another loan to open the final loan. And the easiest way to do that was, hey, we have an opportunity in history to do this because we're the first privately owned pipeline in Europe. Why not incorporate the blockchain, give the big traditional businesses kind of a kick or a push towards, hey, blockchain is something really good to use. And in 10 years from now, it's going to be, oh, you're not on the blockchain, like your technology is behind. Just in the sense of like even operations. I'm not talking about creating your own token and like going down that route. Just something as simple as utilize the blockchain technology.
Okay, and then so this is like a proof of concept then for an oil company to utilize blockchain technology in any in any way, really, just to get exposure to it and start developing the legal frameworks around it and everything like that. So that's all this is right now, is basically a proof of concept.
Yep.
That's why you're incorporating blockchain right now.
That's the best way to actually put it, proof of concept. What we're doing is, if this NFT loan, we're just going to call it an NFT mint, just keep everything really simple. The NFT mint is going to happen on the 17th and it's going to end on the 24th. We have no cap for the amount of NFTs minted. It's just going to be a time limited thing. So you can participate at a free level. There will be no rewards associated with the free level, but you'll be able to be a part of the community and get access to some of the really cool things we'll be able to provide in the future. From there, we have eight paid tiers, which you can see on the screen. They start at $250 and then they go all the way to 250,000. Based on the size of the investor you are, you have the opportunity to participate at what's comfortable to you. In return, what we want to do is we want to offer back a 6-month payback period. Now, our goal is 5 million. Okay, let's just be clear, because then the numbers will make sense. At 6 months, we are paying back, let's pretend we hit the 5 million. We're paying back 7.5 million in AMBO tokens. And then we are starting our own private marketplace where you will be able to exchange an AMBO token for a stable coin at a 1-to-1 ratio. This is as simple as it gets. After the 6 months, we want to do a 20% APR. So you minted an $1,000 NFT, you will receive 200 AMBO tokens per year for a minimum of 3 years. After 3 years, obviously our goal is to go up higher, because the pipeline will be up operating, and then it will be generating revenue. And then some people will ask, okay, where does the ROI come from during that period, since we don't have any revenue? A part of our $2 billion loan is to account for the interest costs, part for like the extra cushion that we need. Basically, with the 5 million that we raise, we're going to be able to pay for the upfront legal fees that are associated with activating our lines of credit. It's going to go towards commitment fees. So a commitment fee is just for our lender for them to see, yes, we are serious in business. Here's the money. They have to perform their own checks on us. Just basic things as a lender. Like, you want to make sure you're giving out your money to somebody who's legit, who's going to do what they say they're going to do. And then, most importantly, we have to pay for a due diligence report. It's a firm that will complete an entire due diligence on myself, on Justin, on Ted, basically on our company. And it's going to look back at the history and go, okay, there's no malicious events. These people haven't stolen money. None of their previous businesses owe people money, like a bad debt scenario. And they just make sure we're not borrowing money to pay somebody else. And it's clearly stated, I think I showed you yesterday, in our letter of intent, there's a very clear line. It says, this money will strictly be used for operations and building the project. And basically for nothing else. Like, they give us the line of credit and I decide to go buy, I don't know, a $50 million house and a $10 million car, they will be able to take that money away, because there's no justification for how that improves the project, right?
Yeah.
So
and I do remember seeing that clause in the contract you showed me.
Yeah. So there's a lot of our clause. They're very specific on what we can use the money for. So I know generally when you have a contract of that size, a lot of people go, oh, I know exactly what I'm buying. I know like what house I'm going to go make an offer on, like all these things that are not business related. And totally understandable. Like, I'm already looking at, what kind of a house in the future do I want to get, and like what cars and all these things. But that's not where I make my money as a CSO. I get paid when the project actually continues to move forward. I get paid through a salary, and then like if the company makes a profit. So my interest aligns with the company the same way Justin's aligns with it, the same way our lenders align with the interest of the company. It's get up and get running, because we will have minimum of 30 years of transporting oil. So that's 900,000 barrels per day at somewhere between $2 and $2.50. So our revenue is an estimated $2 million per day. The quicker we can get this up and going, the more, like, obviously the more money the company can make. And at that point, it's like, okay, we can get started on our future pipelines, which are number 2 and 3. Now those are like a midterm goal and a long-term goal. So midterm is the second one, long-term is the third one. Long story short, the NFTs are really going to be the proof of concept that the blockchain is ready for bigger businesses. Like, we want institutional money to come onto the blockchain and start looking at cryptocurrency. And something that's really, really big that's starting to happen, if you have like an oil pipeline, if you have an oil extractor, there's a lot of wasted energy. And a lot of that energy we want to actually harness and possibly mine Bitcoin with it in the future. In a sense, it would be, how would you even describe this? The amount of like wasted energy will be less, because then we're increasing our efficiency. We're saying, okay, we've used that much electricity to transport the oil. Oh, okay, let's pretend it's like a 2% waste. Hypothetical number. It's not an accurate number. I'm just using it as an example. And then if we're able to use 1.5 out of 2% to mine Bitcoin to do something to improve the blockchain, then that's just something extra we can do. Right? And this is the goal, is how can we be more efficient? Like, Justin spoke a lot about how all the ships, there's a lot of bottlenecks, and the pipeline would reduce those bottlenecks. It would make oil transportation easier to Western Europe and the US.
And
It's
the blockchain aspect of this as a proof of concept, you're looking to increase your efficiencies in terms of accounting and and maybe IT stuff long term, especially with
correct.
with how blockchain is going to be an integral part of the supply chain, I believe, in the future, and all supply chain industries. I think it's going to become a standard in the next decade or two. And also, you're thinking, you mentioned mining, the flare gas from the oil wells, using that to mine proof of work cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin or like Cadena or Litecoin. And would you be doing that through AMBO Pipeline Limited, or would you be looking, because if you're doing the proof of concept with AMBO Pipeline Limited, would you then have an arm that you would create mid to long term after you've had this first proof of concept and be like, now we're going to roll out another, part of the business that tries to make deals with these oil well companies in the areas around there or wherever, and start using the flare gas to offset their waste, put that wasted energy to work. And also, I know you can like add scrubbers for like methane and stuff like that onto these small little shipping container type facilities, or however you build it. You could do a lot that benefits you and the people who own the oil wells. And is that where you're going with this, all under AMBO Pipeline Limited?
Just in terms of safety per operation, like per business, it'll have to be a different corporation, but it would still be operating under the umbrella. Like, we will almost have our own ecosystem in a sense. And obviously our goal is to basically reduce the carbon footprint per unit, if you will. So if we're increasing our efficiency, there's at least a positive outcome. So like, let's say we can't reduce the waste, but what we can do is we can increase the output without increasing the waste. So that just in its nature increases our efficiency, where it can get us further. Now, obviously the goal is to reduce, emissions, reduce all these things. And a part of the pipeline is actually less ships, less possible spills, excuse me, and anything that falls under that, like less accidents,
look at this congestion.
less delays.
This is what I'm showing on the screen, by the way. Justin just sent this to me, and it's Bosporus Strait News, and it shows these shipping container ships and tankers and all this stuff in live time on a map. And if you look here in the area, it's absurd, really. I don't even.
Yep.
It must be a logistical nightmare for
You
everybody
can
involved.
you can zoom in some more and really
I'm
see
s-
like how bad it gets.
I'm scared of it, Alqasim. I don't want to like. The further you zoom in, the more
The worse it
uncomfortable
gets.
it makes me. Yeah, like this is not okay right here. Um, I mean, this is like I can only imagine if something happened. Like these points, these are vulnerabilities here. These straits. Think of all the ships and all like the capital and everything that could be trapped in what is that? The Sea of what did they call? Oh, that was so they could get trapped in this little Sea of Marmara. And I
That's right.
kind of remember that happening in some like 2019, 2020 when things were going crazy, especially when oil prices were like negative
Yep.
$40 a barrel. So it was just a weird situation. You're gonna bypass all that, and that's gonna save
That's
all. I mean,
correct.
think of how many efficiencies the area gains from being able to offset some of these shipping vessels that are taking oil through here.
Yep.
And it also prevents oil spills from those tankers to an extent. It'll
Yep.
lessen the amount of environmental damage potentially
Correct.
in these bodies of water. And
Big time. Think of a lot less collisions. Most importantly, and like we talked about, bad weather. Um,
yeah,
uh,
because you said if there are storms on the Black Sea, it could be 3 weeks of delays
yep.
for. And running these shipping container ships is not cheap. I think it's like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars a day to operate one of these behemoths,
Yes.
and that's crazy to me. So
Yeah.
There was actually not long ago, there was a grain ship coming from Ukraine actually broke down within the Bosporus. I'm just trying to find where it said how long the delays were. I'm sure it was only a day or two, but it doesn't take much just to lock up the whole thing.
and if you do that with all of those ships in there, it could essentially burn, millions, tens of millions, or hundreds of millions of dollars in just a day or two from the
Yep.
aggregate amount of economic
Totally.
waste. Now, somebody could argue that it's good for the economy for them to be spending that extra money, but it's not great for the businesses involved that are trying to be profitable.
Yep.
So, with your pipeline, you mentioned carbon credits, and that's a hot topic these days. There are actually a lot of BlockFi projects trying to tackle onboarding carbon credits onto
Yep.
the blockchain and then allow companies, especially oil companies, to provide liquidity and basically be a liquidity provider and earn yields in carbon credits that they can then use to offset their carbon emissions to get under their carbon caps that
Yep.
the UNCCF or whatever it's called is pushing
Yep.
on them. So
UNICEF.
yeah, and there's a lot of there's a lot of savings to be had there. Now with you being how does that how can you benefit economically from that with AMBO Pipeline Limited, the company? Do you have a strategy to gain any kind of the market there on offsetting those carbon credit emissions if you do long-term go and do like the flare gas burning and also
Yep.
any efficiencies you might gain from the pipeline itself?
For my role, I don't think we're going to go down that path just because that's not our expertise. But this question might be more for Justin.
On the flare gas side, we don't have an issue with flare gas because we don't do it anywhere. We don't have anything involvement with gas. Being just a pipeline, we receive a tanker at one end, we unload it into the pipe, pump it through to the other end, unload it onto the ship at the other end. So flare gas has got nothing to do with us. One of the things I am looking into doing, and we're trying to work out the best way and is it economically viable to do, is on the pumping stations in the countries. We have 4 pump stations. Is it possible that we can run it off solar? Can we get enough solar energy on the fields to create solar farms to run it? That's one of the things we are looking into. The other side, going back to the mining of Bitcoin, one of the questions I've also got for the engineers is, when you go through from Bulgaria across North Macedonia, when you come over into Albania, you're actually going up and over mountains to come down all the way to the coast. Now, there is a pump station down on the downside of the mountains, which is to reduce the pressure in the pipe. My question to the engineers is there a way of turning this into a power generator? So like hydro, water from the power stations through the dam, can it flip and turn a turbine, create electricity, power up those computers, mine Bitcoin? So that's one of the things we are looking into, which will obviously help reduce, because if we don't need to have electricity to pay for to run that pump station, however, the gravity and of the oil funneling down on power and reduce the pressure at the same time, then it's a win-win for us.
Interesting. I've never heard of anybody thinking of using the downward,
the downforce,
the downward sloping force generated by oil going down a mountain to turn current turbines, or like that. That's awesome. And Bitcoin's interesting there because you're going to generate the electricity at probably some like random point in a mountain, probably not too close to, potentially not close to any grid that you could sell it to. So mining Bitcoin allows you to basically monetize that energy production, so you don't have to combat the unprofitability of power attenuation across long lines, power lines.
Yes.
To get to the grid. Interesting. Now, so that's good. You initially said, well, we're not going to do flare gas stuff, and Alqasim earlier was saying, well, like we might be thinking about offering some kind of service for the flare gas stuff with the blockchain, because if you guys go this blockchain route,
not that route.
Okay.
It just in terms of that final portion, for example, like what wasted energy is there going to be across the pipeline? That's what we're going to utilize. Like Justin said, it's just an oil pipeline that transports oil. We're not pumping oil out of the ground. We get oil on one end.
Would you offer it as a service though to oil producers in the areas and be like, we've got the blockchain expertise now? Are you trying to compete on that level to offer any kind of blockchain technology as a service to other people, since you're kind of doing a proof of concept for it, or is it just for your own specific?
Well, in Albania there is some oil wells, so that is one of the things obviously we can talk to.
It's a conversation to be had for sure, but in terms of do we have exact plans? No, I don't think so. Obviously, that will come with the experience of actually going through it. If we try it and it's not feasible, then at least we know we won't even adventure with another company with that, because the concept failed. Where if the concept succeeds, then it can at least be the first step of saying, okay, let's have the conversation, and can we provide this like positive service to other places? But is it in our priority list? Definitely not.
Got it. Sounds good. So right now, this proof of concept is really to remain relevant and up to date with the technology, so that way you position yourselves well at that point in time to be able to do anything you might need to with that technology. You'll already have it as part of the company history and that experience.
Okay. And then we're able to actually have pipeline 2 and 3 on the blockchain, whether it's full operations on the blockchain or having crypto involved. But like I said, and like we've all said, this is a proof of concept. If the crypto community shows that it's ready for businesses of this size, then like this can be a big turning point in the market cycles. Like imagine we do this and the interest is sufficient and it starts to catch traction on a media stream level, where it says, hey, this project tackled a $5 million goal. It's an oil project, all these buzzwords. And then suddenly you go, oh, okay, you'll see more institutions coming in, which suddenly changes the investor confidence. It's not going to be sudden, obvious. It's just going to quicken that, like the trough. Yeah. It won't be, crypto winter for 3 years. It might be for a year and a half or 2. Like I still don't expect us to get out of our rut until March. We'll probably see a bottom somewhere around February, March. But from there, it's going to take just as long for us to get out from like the 5,000 mark and break the 20. It should take that 7 months plus a year, give or take. But if we can shorten that by bringing in really cool things, then that's like people in the future will thank us for trying it. We'll thank ourselves for trying it, like let alone other people.
So you guys have a bit of some idealism and like future progression for the industries as a whole here. You're trying to push things forward for crypto adoption in terms of fundraising and potential ownership and all sorts of strategies once regulatory frameworks are in place to allow things of this scale to be done. That interesting take. So
it's
one of Alqasim's ideas is for the future for the pipeline 2 and 3 is, and how he's pitched it to us is, wouldn't it be great if people could actually own, say, a foot of a pipeline? So your NFT will actually give you that legal right to that 1 foot of the tariff of the oil that flows through that pipeline, and you get that share of the business for yourself. I think that's brilliant.
That is very cool, but why would you guys do that? Why would you give up potential ownership of that pipeline when that equity would be worth billions?
More.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be the whole of the equity of the pipeline, does it?
No.
You could say, hey, we're going to have 50% or 51%, so we have control of the majority. And we could say, okay, 49% of the shareholders divide the cost of that pipeline, and there you go. We still have a big chunk. Everybody else has a nice chunk as well.
In that situation, would you use a DAO to do like voting for that chunk of the equity shareholders in terms of like large decision making, or
that's
would you
board
only
of
give
directors
a minority stake in the company so that way you guys would always have control?
That's a board of directors.
The DAO sounds good, but I don't like the word DAO.
Yeah, I know it's strange.
There's nothing.
Yeah, it's like, how do you merge that concept with like a corporate structure that we're all used to? How do those negotiations work, and at the board of directors meetings? So I think what you were saying, like 51% to 49%, might make sense, where you guys just say you guys are silent investors. No, not investors. It's theoretical, not a security. Blah blah blah. All that regulatory frameworks hopefully will be in place by then to allow you guys to navigate that. So yeah, what's your take on that?
But it'd be the same as just offering out dividends, etc.
That's correct.
In real world.
Yep. Yeah. And sorry, Alex. The easier way to go about it as well, like, it's the same question that Justin and I had is, if we do 51% in the future and then 49% for the blockchain, like each pipeline is estimated to be worth $10 billion.
Jeez.
Right. So the proof of concept is, if this works out, then we can do pipeline 2, even if it's like 10% of the pipeline. But the entire goal here is oil and gas industry is generally not available to anybody unless they're an accredited investor, are into the oil companies as like a very large holder or on a board of directors. And like, this is what Justin knows, like in and out of, and let alone Ted. Ted is almost 60 years into the oil industry. Like he probably grew up playing in oil, and he's now in his later stage of his life where he's still doing the same thing. And my role is, hey guys, this whole new crazy internet money idea is coming in, and like we really believe it's the future. How can we bring you guys and bring what we think is the future together and make something really cool? And you get to give the people who are, I'm going to say small people, because they're individuals coming together and not somebody who has multiples of billions of assets or cash available to keep these really cool things to themselves. So we break it, it becomes decentralized in a sense. Obviously,
the term used these days is fractionalized. So you're going to offer fractionalized ownership of large infrastructure projects that retail investors have never been able to really get unless they're getting the shares of a specific company that currently owns whatever it is. But this would actually give them like a legal part of the deed, if you will, of that chunk of real estate or property.
Totally.
Okay. And so my question always then is like, so what's in it for you guys? What's your strategy here? So I see it's going to be worth $10 billion once built. It's going to cost about $2 billion. So pipeline 2, if this pipeline 1 costs $2 billion to build, how much is pipeline 2 going to cost to build? And if you're making $641 million annually from the income projected from pipeline 1, is the next stage going to be, okay, we don't have X amount of years to raise the funds through that income to build, with cash up front. So is that why you're thinking of Pipeline 2 doing a chunk in fractionalized equity for fundraising? Or is that like, so what's in it for you guys? What's your strategy here? Why would you even give up that equity still?
Well, to be fair, once Pipeline 1 is built, there's enough money in that for the shareholders to be comfortable, extremely. And to have my whole idea of everything is the legacy for my children or my grandchildren onwards. From one pipeline, that's enough for me. So why not spread it a bit and future? So number 2 pipeline is a similar length it will be. So it's going to be the similar cost of 2 billion. Number 3 pipeline, because it's running under the sea through the Caspian Sea from Kazakhstan to Azerbaijan, it's only approximately no more than 150 to 200 miles the length, but because it's under the sea, it's going to be more expensive. So we're only ballparking figures of pipeline 2 is 2 billion, pipeline 3 is 2 billion again, but pretty good educated guesses at it.
And with the income from the first one, that won't start until year 3 when it's estimated to be built. So 3 years from now, it'll be built and it'll start generating. That 4th year, you'll have that 641 million from that first year of operation. You'll probably have to pay back some stuff from that. So potentially, you'll be profitable. When do you think?
Well, if you were to work on the fact that we were to pay back the full 2 billion, okay, if we wanted to pay that back quickly, it would be paid back within the first 3 years of the business up and running.
Okay, so about 6
because
years
the actual
from now.
Yeah, for 6 years we would be up and running and paid debt off straight. The estimated income is actually going to be closer to 800 million. I think on that one we worked at $2 a barrel for transportation, where we're comfortably going to be looking at $2.50, possibly as much as $3 a barrel to be transported.
Yep.
And then inflation on top of that as well.
Yeah, and then if there's something happening, then the price goes up. If there's an urgent need, if there's an accident, all of a sudden it's supply and demand coming into force again. So, hey, you need us more than we need you. It's going to cost you more a barrel.
Yeah.
Bingo.
So
we're doing the whole contracts on a pay and take. So you pay, you can take the use of the pipeline.
Okay. And so about 6 years, and you'll have paid back the cost for this. You'll be profitable from there.
Very aggressive. That's very aggressive.
Very
payback.
Aggressive. Yeah.
So our plans, the phase 2, which is the full funding of the project, that one is called a 4+4. So for the first 4 years, we're only paying interest, and then the 4 years after that, we're paying principal plus interest. The nice thing is, once the 8 years is completed, we can turn it into a long-term loan, but our goal is really to shed off as much as we can from the loan. And that, very aggressive, like Justin said, 3 years after operating, we would be debt-free in a sense, but it would also mean that us as executives, as shareholders, would have been paid almost nothing. And that's kind of it gets into the talks of the second and the third pipelines. And man, we just want to be a part of history. Being a part of history is priceless. And saying you started something in history is way cooler than, getting money that it will pass away and the money will get carried down the family. But generational wealth is generally lost within 3 generations, 80% of the time. And this is actual figures. If you're loaded with money by your 3rd generation, the money's gone.
I've heard that. Yeah.
So putting a dent in history is way cooler because it will actually stay there. Where the money will you die. It's what are you gonna do with your money? other than like taking care of your kids, obviously. But
So that's super long term. Like, you guys are obviously, if this goes well, you guys are gonna be set up. Your kids are gonna be building cities in the desert and all that kind of stuff. Like crazy.
they'll
oil
have
money,
a good
right?
life. They'll have a good life.
Now, in
But
terms,
we still want to. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
so yeah, that's gonna be awesome. You know, assuming everything's executed and goes with flying colors. And I guess some of the reason, my line of questioning here is what level of leverage are you going to use, like, currently, and what level of leverage are you going to use, and at what point for funding the second pipeline build? Because I just want to get, if the NFTs are getting some kind of loan payback over 3 years, and then potentially you guys will then decide if there's going to be any additional benefit after that, and then that second pipeline might have some kind of, like, ideally regulated equity ownership with blockchain stuff. With all that being said, the exposure to, like, potentially my viewers who might want to participate in the NFT side of things, what's their exposure to leveraged financial risk now and at Pipeline 2?
Okay. So for now, okay, to cover our line of credit, our facilitator is putting up a lot of money, but our risk on the table is basically everything we have. So our right of way, which is, like, if you search it up, we can share the documents as well because they're public, but excuse me. You can go over, thanks. It's basically like the rights to build the pipeline. Like, this pipeline, it's not a first come, first serve. Like, these rights were signed in 2007. It took almost 10 years. Sorry.
Yeah, it's been written into law that AMBO is to build the pipeline. So it's in the memorandum of understanding under 3 countries, have basically all in law said AMBO has the right to build this pipeline.
Correct.
So what we're risking with the lenders, as Alqasim was saying, is basically our intellectual property, our rights of this whole pipeline.
Yeah. So
if we do something wrong, somebody else is going to be on the wagon to make the money.
And if the person, organization, if the ultimate financier backing the build for this thing for those 3 years, how are they going to be, compensated? Are they just doing this for an interest based deal, like getting a percent interest, because they're not going to have any equity in this, right?
No, we were trying at the very beginning when raising funds was very difficult. We wanted to give up an equity position in the company to say, hey, we'll take you on board, we'll accept your loan terms, and then we will negotiate the equity percentage. Obviously, as a project starter, as a company starter, you want to give up as little equity as possible at the very beginning. And these guys would be taking, like, equity at, I think, a $50 million level. Like, they would basically own the company at that point, and we would get nothing for doing everything, basically. So after getting into private funds, private family money, and all those things, we were able to secure a deal. Like, the lender that we're dealing with, they have a dedicated section of their lending business that's dedicated to infrastructure. And because those loans generally end with $1 billion, the interest you pay is much different than if you're to go for $1 million loan. Like, $1 million loan right now, if your loan is in the millions, you're paying double-digit interest right now. And this is, like, we're in the double digits for our first 500 million. And this is why it's so important for us to make sure the due diligence is done as fast as possible. The legal fees are paid quickly, because what happens is our second lender, they will be absorbing the first one, and then we get to enjoy a really, really low interest rate. And this is why, like, we have incentive to move forward quickly and make sure everything is done correctly by law, legally, the finances make sense. At that point, it's only a 4x leverage. But like we said, we're putting our rights, our money on the table. If we mess up, like, they get taken away. And then our futures are done in the sense of, like, the oil world.
So,
So
your minimum like goal. So the minimum amount of money you need to finalize all the legal fees for everything you need to finish doing the DD and the environmental stuff and get that all squared away. And then also the earnest money that you need to put up to get the loan, the initial
yep.
loan. So what's the minimum amount you need? Um, what? Sorry, it's really loud there. What's the minimum amount that
Yeah.
you would need for this right now? Like, how much
Yep.
money do you have to put together right now?
So for us to
Minimum.
get started, just to get the line of credit activated is about $2 million.
Okay.
That's just like legal fees, commitment fees, and due diligence. Like legal, commitment fee, due diligence. It's about $2 million to get everything squared away. And then after that, so everything gets activated. It's going to take 90 days to get the first tranche of money. Once we get our money, then we have to call up and do the environmental and social study. That one takes 12 months because it needs to go through 4 seasons. And that is at that point, oh, okay, common sense. Like, we understand what happens across the 4 seasons. That takes
Okay.
12 months. There's no way to speed it up, and there's no way to slow it down. But what happens when we have the money available? Like, for example, that costs, I think, $20 to $25 million just for that study. What happens when we have the money available is if there are certain phases that are completed before the rest, we can at least begin ordering material and calling up, like, our engineering firm will be in charge of hiring the construction, the project owners, and all of that stuff. Sorry, the study is $10 million, not $25 million. But because we have the money for that, and we have the money that's available to work with the material, we can start ordering early. We can be ahead of time on the schedule, but we still have to wait the 12 months. However, things will be ready ahead of time. The crew will be ready. Things will play more hand in hand than, choppy one thing at a time.
I see.
It's quicker doing it the way we want to do it. Is whilst the environmental is done, we go ahead, we order steel, we order production slots, we get everything in order. So everything is rolling over and crossing over on itself.
Yep.
Whereas if you did it the old slow way, you would do your environmental study. You'd then go, right, we've got this done. Now we go to the banks and they go, okay, now you do it. And all of a sudden you're adding another year onto your project.
Right.
But by doing it the way that we're doing it with the funders, we've got the money up front, we can order and go.
So you've got a contract in place with the lenders that says as soon as that environmental study passes, then all the funding's on the table for this initial 50 million.
The funding is on the table.
The funding is before.
Yeah, the funding is on the table. The only thing for us, so what happens if the environmental and the social is not at 100%? It just means that there are things that need to be reconfigured. Like the pipeline would have to take a slight detour. And that's why Justin and I say it's approximately 815 kilometers, because it might add a kilometer or two in a certain section. It might be reduced in others.
Are you in corridor 8 right now?
Yes.
And if
yes, we're going to basically run in along corridor 8 of the EU, which is a highway at the moment.
If the environmental study determines that it endangers the Rase River, the fertile Polog, the fields of Mavrovo National Park, then you guys would pivot and go to corridor 10, right?
No. Basically, as you're doing the whole environmental and social studies, is a lot of it is along the route. You'll be visiting the village halls, the villages, having meetings with the locals, with the mayors. They would bring up their issues saying, hang on a sec, we don't want you to go through this field or this field because of X. Could be archaeological, it could be there's a certain frog, in which case, okay, well, let's detour around, go this way slightly, everybody's happy, you go on to the next problem and you overcome that. So the environmental is not an issue that we're going to fail because you just move slightly around. And because it's in the interest of the 3 countries to have this pipeline, we know there's no issue with the environmental social. It's just making sure everybody's happy in the long run.
Yep. I see. So the general area that this is going through in the corridor, you're very confident that there's not going to be any like complete blocks that will stop this, just minor adjustments along the way, right?
Yeah. Well, there shouldn't be because they've already built a highway or motorway, depending where in the world you are. We're just running along the side of it underground.
Yep.
So you don't see this pipeline either. It's underground, the majority of it.
I see. So yeah, it's underground. So that means any rivers and things, it's going under the rivers and
going under the rivers, under the farmers' fields. They can carry on doing their crops above.
Yep.
How deep will this pipeline be?
It's normally about 2 to 3 meters.
Okay.
So it's not huge.
That's deep.
Through the mountains on top though, because we're not drilling through the rock.
Okay, good to know. So I have a good clear picture now of kind of how this thing's gonna go above the mountains, then under the ground the rest of the way, and under rivers a lot, and it's gonna be all along an existing highway that goes through that corridor. Okay, so so you guys are confident that at month 12 the environmental study will give you the exact course along that corridor that you guys need. Once you get the A-OK on that, you're going to order the materials and start digging.
No. The material we're going to start ordering whilst the environmental is already on the go.
Okay.
So month 13, that pipe's starting to be going in the ground.
Yep.
Very confident then. Okay. So you're going to have the materials there ready, and as soon as digging commences, you're just digging and putting it in. All right.
Because there's
and it's not obviously going to start at one end. We're going to be starting at different sections, and they all join up.
Yeah.
Which speeds up the process as well.
Yeah. Two big things as well that are heavily in our favor. The first one is, like we said, the highway's already there. We're using local workers for whatever section that it falls under. So it's bringing money to those villages, to the cities, wherever it might lie under. And then the third one is we're going to be having things like phone companies, internet companies. Like we can dig a little bit more and have them run their lines. So those
fiber optics.
Yeah, fiber optics. Those areas would be getting better infrastructure. It's not just about the pipeline. It's now about, better telecommunications, better internet, and whatever might need to go in at the same time. This slightly makes our construction costs less, not by a lot, but it's still something that's small that helps the community more than just a pipeline in the ground. It's infrastructure, but we're adding more infrastructure in one project.
Okay. Interesting. Good to know. I worked at a telecom company for a long time, and I saw that kind of piggybacking going on and the deals that they would have to. There's a lot that's involved in that and managing that kind of thing, and that's cool that you can find some additional efficiencies piggybacking deals with ISPs and other utility companies.
That's correct.
So with all that being said, month 12, you guys are putting it in the ground, and you think by before month 36, this will be all done, and your financing will be above board and all good to go. And during that whole 3 years, the NFT holders will be getting not only their initial loan that
they would have gotten it back. Yeah, first 6 months, and then it's just an annual 20% in AMBO tokens. Now, at a $5 million NFT mint, our yearly cost is $1 million. That does not put an impact. It doesn't put a dent in our budget, which is really nice. Like, it's $1 million per year for 3 years.
Yeah.
Like, we can pay that out immediately in a sense. But on the opposite end, a lot of people ask, how can you afford to carry it? Well, we can afford to carry it because we have an interest budget as a part of our loan. And 3 million, quite frankly, is like 2 weeks worth of interest in the big level. And that covers 3 years of being on the blockchain. And like, that's the best way for us to thank the people who are helping us raise the money we need for the short term.
Okay. To give you an idea, it's roughly $94,000 an hour going through the pipeline.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's like a really nice yearly salary for some college educated or like really good trade job. Like that's a really nice salary here in the United States where I am as a software engineer. Like that's a good job, and that's every hour on
Correct.
for forever. That's crazy.
Minimum 30 years. Minimum 30 years.
What's your burn rate just to operate it? How many people are you gonna have manning this thing?
There's going to be up to 600 staff throughout the whole company.
Okay.
And the budget's around 50 to 60 million for the actual operating costs.
Okay, so you have a staff of 600 and an operating cost of 50 or 60 million a year?
Yeah.
So that's to make sure we're up and running. The actual construction might have up to 6,000, I believe. But once it's up and operating, we have the budget for 600 staff, like Justin said, 50 to 60 million per year for the operating costs. So it's a healthy profit, but we also have to pay each country because they have said, you know what, I want taxes and I want a percentage per barrel transported. So like all
basically,
those things come into play.
Yeah. So the three countries, we give them what we call a tariff back to them. So
is this
Bulgaria,
641 million? Is this EBITDA? Like after taxes and everything and the tariffs?
No. That 641 in that document is working on $2 per barrel as a transportation.
Actually, less. It's at 1.8.
Was it less?
If I remember right.
Right. Okay. So if you take that up to $2.5 a barrel, it's actually 801 million a year.
And that's after taxes and tariffs and depreciation.
No, that's before.
No, that's top line revenue before we pay.
Yeah. Oh, 641 to 800 depending on the price. That's
revenue.
So on your documentation here it says income. So that's not net income.
No, that's the income of the revenue income. Income can be used in many different places.
So what's your profit after everything, after taxes, depreciation? What's your net profits at each year that you're projecting?
I would project that we're going to be giving as a tariff roughly back to the three countries. We're probably looking at about 100 million a year divided between the three countries.
That's a lot.
So Bulgaria, for example, has 50% of the pipe, so they will receive 50% of the tariff.
Yep.
Macedonia and Albania have 25% each, so they would then get 25% of their share of the tariff.
Yep.
So if we take the operating costs of, say, 50 million, and we take out the tariff of 100 million, before we pay taxes, depending where we're registered fully when it's operational, would be 150 out of the back door into, operating and the countries to be happy.
Yep.
Okay.
The rest of the money is then down to where we're operating from in the final. Once we're up and running, depending what country we're operating from, is depending what tax levels are going to be.
Yep.
I see. So that's a very profitable business. So $150 million estimated profit from this endeavor. If you guys pull this all off, everything goes smoothly, and good to know. So with that all being said, I think we have a good idea of the numbers, the financing, some of the legal and environmental stuff. I have a couple other questions. I know we're approaching an hour here in about 10 minutes, so I want to run through some of the stuff that I asked. Basically, all of my all the projects that I have on here, I talk about risks, and normally in the DeFi blockchain space. So with your business here, I also like to cover, business risks. What level of exposure do you guys have? What do you need to achieve to make this thing successful? Now with the DeFi side of things, are you guys like KYC'd? I know you're fully doxed, so you can look you guys up in the company filings, right?
Yep.
So you guys can't just disappear without a trace with the $5 million you might potentially get.
No, I'd rather get my hands on the bigger amount, to be fair.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. There's way more on the table than for us to be at $94,000 per hour of revenue operating a pipeline. We can do that in about 50 hours. That's 2 days in of revenue.
By Wednesday, we've done it.
Yeah, by Wednesday, we've made 5 million in terms of revenue. So, even if we raise $100 million,
Yeah.
the pros and cons of doing anything bad with the money, it's just like anybody with any foresight is able to tell you, yeah, run the pipeline. You got at least 30 years of revenue ahead of you. And like, who knows what happens? Maybe 5 years down the road, we get an offer to be bought out.
Mm.
Then, there's suddenly like, oh, first pipeline is done. It's been sold. And we have all this money. We can go and build our second or third pipeline. Like if we never moved ahead with it, suddenly now we have the cash to do it. And,
I
it's
see.
a rinse and repeat at that point. But all of us are fully available on the website. Justin is the only one that will be added on a little bit later, but you could see all of his info available through the corporate registration. There's
And I have that right here. You can just Google basically the
Yeah.
So what I did is I went to contact, and all I did
Yep.
was I just copied the company registry number, pasted it in Google, and it
Yep.
brought up a bunch of filing websites, and it has
correct.
your basically
Yes.
the main details from your articles of incorporation.
Yep.
And so AMBO Pipeline Limited, you guys are the only two officers, so you guys have all the equity here, and then the for the team compensation, you guys are all equity. Ted and William are salaried, and
Correct.
okay, so and you guys, so this is a question that we get a lot of times, is like, what, you raise all this money, and what's your runway in terms of like your personal lives? Are you guys okay to run this thing without having an if this is your full-time job, right? Or are you going to be like doing part-time jobs on the side to pay for your mortgages or whatever,
No. This is full time. However, Ted, who's obviously the CEO, will be running the majority of the business.
Okay.
And then I'll be backing Ted up with what he needs at the same time.
And Ted has been at this since like this deal
1964.
since like the 90s. 1964.
The 90s, yeah.
No, he got into the oil industry in 1964.
Oh, I see. Yeah, and the AMBO pipeline started in like 1990s initially.
Yep. Negotiations started in 94. It took 10 years to get all three governments and regulations sorted out. That was 2004, like verbally 2004, but paper date, they signed the tripartite in 2007.
Right.
And then it's been a matter of like sorting out funding. Luckily for us, 2022 was the year to sort out all the funding. Now it's just a matter of putting the pen to the paper and making sure we move ahead in full force.
Yeah, I mean, you had, going back to 2008, you had the big financial crisis as well, so that wasn't helpful for them at the stage.
Yep.
There's been things along the way that haven't made things easy, and I think we're at a stage now that everything is in place. Yes. We've done it. Let's just move on.
Yeah, let's do something to help reduce the shipping crisis in the world. Like, nice thing is the shipping pricing is coming back down. Oh, and a huge part of like this project was in 2019 they were able to get their interest back in places, start to get financial commitments, and then material pricing just went right through the roof. And now we're finally back at a place where material pricing makes sense and is back within the projected costs. So everything is, like I said, the stars are lining up.
The numbers are much better because the price of oil at that time was negative $40 a barrel, and now it's back to realistic levels, and it comes up on paper as a profitable endeavor, right?
And this is just as simple as building material. Like, imagine building a house a year and a half ago. It would have cost you, like, let's say you want to build a $500,000 house today. A year and a half ago, that would have been like 1.5 million. Yeah. And this applied as well for steel. It applied for any construction material. And in our scenario, it's the same thing. Now we are back to regular pricing, where we have a cushion left over after our $2 billion loan.
So the like macroeconomic conditions with commodities and everything is now favorable for financing this business, whereas it has not been the past 5 to 10 years, right?
No, not the 5-10 years, but yes.
Yeah. Okay. And all right, so that's good. We've got the team covered there. And what countries is everybody from?
Justin, go ahead.
Oh, myself. Well, I live in the UK, in the east of England, originally from Ireland. Ted is English. Bill's American, I believe.
And I'm in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good to know. So that's great. There have been some issues. I don't know how how close on the pulse you are of some of this DeFi crypto stuff, but there in some countries you have more accountability and things. So if you were to go and just run off with this money, you guys are all in countries where there would be severe legal repercussions, correct?
Yeah, most certainly.
Good.
Big time. Big
So that's
jail time. Put it that way.
That's what we like to hear out here in DeFi, you guys. All right, your asses are on the line, so that's good. Because we get rug pulled left and right out here. So that's something we're always like, where are you from? Is there any accountability? Can we call somebody there and be like, go get them? Yeah. And you guys, we can.
Well, at the end of the day, we're on company's house. We're directors. We have responsibilities as a director of the company.
Yep.
Right. So you have fiscal responsibility and liability here.
Correct.
Yes.
All right.
Like, biggest thing we said was the actual rights of the pipeline. Like, the rights alone without anything else are worth anywhere between $35 to $50 million. So that's what we have on the table. Now we have 50 million on the table.
Yeah. So if worst case scenario, what if this thing, doesn't pan out for whatever reason, the only kind of gray area with the financing, accountability and all that is if these NFTs are some kind of crowdfunded loan for you guys, there's really no regulated framework for how that all works out. If things kind of don't go as planned, would you refund any money raised here with the NFTs?
If we have whatever's left, so we're going to use the money to pay for the short-term legal fees, like I mentioned. So let's say we raise 5 million, it costs us 2, there's 3 remaining, and at that point we find out for whatever awful reason, of the 0.0001% that we're not moving forward, then at that point we got to return the money, so we can say, hey, we returned back what we were holding. The what's the deduction here's the legal fees, here's this, here's that, whatever's left gets distributed back proportionally.
Would you have any kind of legal audit in place that you would have a third party legal company kind of have a monitoring situation on there where you guys say you would be in that situation?
That would have been a part of it at that point, because then the failure needs a reason. And at that point, it's self-explanatory. You can't just say, hey, there's money missing and our business is not going to work. Again, it goes back to point number 1. Our main interest is making sure the pipeline runs. So even if it costs a little bit more money, then we're still going to do it. It's just a matter of make sure you don't stumble along the way. So if it doesn't work out, whatever's remaining will proportionally go back.
Now, legally, would you consider this a sacrifice? So would we be sacrificing X amount of dollars? That's what they're saying these days in DeFi world for things like this, because you can't say I'm investing, because then it's a security, right? So are you guys having these people sacrifice that money with no expectation of any kind of return? Worst case scenario, if this thing whole blows up, you guys all declare bankruptcy or something like that, God forbid, would that money's written off essentially? There's no legal requirement for you guys to pay anything back, technically, right?
Technicality, yes. If you go bankrupt, what are you going to pay people back with, right?
Absolutely.
Can't really pay them back anything with. But the goal, full disclaimer, any business you do, there's a risk of you not getting your money back, whether you sacrificed it, invested it, or loaned it. I say this for full transparency because we're going through the same thing. We're borrowing money and our lender knows, hey, if this business fails, then we're not getting our money back. So we better do all of our due diligence on the project itself, on the people themselves. So we've gone through the hot seat time and time again to make sure everything is as probable for working out as possible. And that's like what somebody that's watching this video is going to find out is, hey, everything checks out, everything is in order, the legal documents are in place. The only thing that's left is just activating a line of credit to begin an environmental and a social study.
Yeah. So I clarify these questions. It might seem odd, to hear these questions, but like your financer knows all that. You have a clause in there that says, as long as all the money goes to the business, and then if it fails, like then you're not, on the line for it. Technically, like
they take everything that's remaining of the company, including the rights. So like if we mismanage it, it's
it's like if you're doing a self-build mortgage. You have to have somebody come along and tick a box to say, you've now done the foundations. Here's the next bit. You've done this. Here's your next bit. And that's how it works with us as well. We have to get to certain stages, and then we get the next bump, and we're done.
That's right. We don't get everything at once.
I wanted to point that out, that like your financer understands all that, but the retail NFT participants out here, not all of them understand these things. And we see that time and time again with DeFi, where if an enterprise goes under, which these are small businesses, yours, I guess, yours isn't, I guess. Yours is
we're still
large,
a small business at the beginning. And it still falls under the same thing. Like there's a risk to it. And that's why we're saying, like, we will give you back AMBO tokens. Like you're essentially purchasing AMBO tokens, and then we're backing those tokens with our revenue. And therefore, you're not investing with a guaranteed return. We're just saying we're going to back those AMBO tokens with $1 each once the money's available in about 6 months.
And that's,
that's
ideally,
clearly stated.
Worst case scenario, though, like something goes wrong and there wouldn't be backing for the AMBO tokens, there'd be no liquidity, and they'd be, and so I want everybody to understand that. And that's what my channel is mainly about, is presenting the risk reward profile, so everybody can determine within their own risk tolerance levels, if this is something that they want to participate in, and to be able to do it in the most informed way possible. And we see a lot of times deceptive marketing out here. You guys have been very clear and transparent with your answers and with what you've shown me. So that's great. But other projects don't do that and lead people on, and then they get up in arms basically if things go sideways. And I have to remind people all the time, this is a small business incubator on a global scale, and 4 out of 5 small businesses fail in the United States, where I'm from. So people got to understand there's risk in terms of like business, operational, management, fiscal, all that stuff. There's risks there. But then there's also risks that are exposed from the blockchain side of things, which is what I want to cover next very quickly. Are you smart contracts for the NFTs and also for the AMBO tokens and any dApps, any smart contracts on the back end you'll interact with? Are those audited, and if so, by whom?
2 very important things. Our token is a very simple token. It has no fancy things that need to be audited. It's just like you're going to trade it back for $1. That's the goal. So there's no audit necessary on that side. But in terms of the NFT side, we are looking at a CERDIC audit. And the reason is, so it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
But those NFTs will be carrying a first of its kind smart contracts, which are anti-drain, anti-exploit, and within the foreseeable future, so hopefully within the month or 2, you'll be able to have a 2-factor authentication for the transfers. So in case somebody tries to drain or steal from your wallet, it's going to revert back to you if they don't have the code, and that's a 30-second code.
And that's new. That's not. That I don't know anything that's been done like that before. And you said you're actually coming up with your own standard for the ERC 721, and yours is going to be called ERC 721S.
Yes.
And you will be developing that through another business that you're involved in called Insurify, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So Insurify, it's 3 people. I'm one of them. I'm the CEO over at Insurify, and we really wanted AMBO not to only come in as a traditional business. A traditional business a traditional business in the oil and gas industry as a first on the blockchain, but we also wanted to raise the standard of security with it. Like imagine this, like oil company coming in, and they got nothing new to offer. They're just saying, hey, we're oil, we make a lot of money, come join us. No, we wanted to do that, and then on top of that, we want to say, hey, we're bringing in a new security level. And like Insurify is not launching until next month, but this is going to be the pilot, and it's going to be the new standard setting NFT project. We already have a grant in place already. Aside from AMBO, like full disclosure, this is not it's not me funding me. This is third-party blockchains that are getting ready to fund Insurify. Yeah, because the goal for that is going to be integration at a layer 1 level.
Okay. So what that brings me to my next question. Well, what network are these NFTs going to exist on, and what network will the AMBO tokens and your OTC marketplace that you're going to set up?
Everything's on Ethereum. Don't be scared. Gas fees are like very reasonable. They're a few dollars now.
At the time of this recording, they're like around $10 on average. I've seen.
Yeah, I think the last check we did was 59 cents or something like that. But if it changes, don't worry. It won't be more than like $10 at the very most.
Yeah.
Depending on obviously chain activity, but gas fees will be all right. The NFTs will be on Ethereum, just because that is the biggest NFT space is on the Ethereum chain. And also naturally, we'll have to pay you the tokens on the Ethereum chain.
So the AMBO tokens will be on the Ethereum chain as well. And how does that process work? Is it a monthly, quarterly, or yearly depositing of AMBO tokens into a claimable contract that you can go to a website and like click claim? Is it going to be airdropped? How is the distribution of the AMBO tokens going to work for the NFT holders?
It's one out of two things will happen. It'll either be airdropped, or it's going to be you stake your NFT and you will watch your interest accrue by the second, and then you'll be able to pull it whenever you want. It's one out of the two things. Obviously, for the 6-month period, like the first 6 months, we're going to airdrop those. But in terms of the annual APR, like the APR at 20%, that one is probably just going to be a slowly accruing. Like you have $1,000 NFT, it will just be slowly accruing that 200 tokens per year.
So
very simple. You can withdraw it when you need them. And then the private marketplace, we're looking around the 6-month mark, where it'll be very basic. It won't be fancy. It'll be like 3 or 4 tokens, one of them being AMBO, and then you'll have like 2 or 3 stablecoin options to transfer to.
So just to reiterate everything you just said, after that 6-month payback period, they're going to get the minting price plus whatever bonus is on top of that, depending on how big this initial raise is. 5% for every million, up to you're shooting for 5 million, so potentially an extra 25% on top of that. And
so we're looking at 150% back in the tokens within the first 6 months, and then the 6 months after that, you're gonna be fully at 20% for 1 year, and then every year it's 20%. Once we're up and running, we would like to up that 20%. That's going to be the goal. But if we're going very aggressive and paying back debt, maybe we won't be able to go past 20% much. But at least we have a nice floor of 20%.
20%, as I've seen out here in DeFi, is about the highest realistic reward that you can expect in a year from any kind of actual business model, it seems like, because anything that I've seen at least not promising, this is not a promise, anything that I've seen projecting
that looks promising,
that looks promising is based on some kind of funny economics, if you know what I'm saying. So with all that being said, do you guys have multi-sigs on this stuff? With your new ERC 721S contracts, are you going to have multi-sigs on top of that for interacting with them for your business here?
So our wallet will go on a ledger and become a multi-signature, which is kind of a double safety thing. In terms of our NFTs, so what happens is if you want to do a transfer, it will just go into a pending status, and then it will get manually verified just to make sure it's not an exploit. If there's an exploit, then there will be a flag and we will pause transactions just so people don't lose their assets. In the future, it will be automated. At the same time, it will fall under the 2FA, like two-factor authentication, where there will be no pending status. The pending status will solely be based on you inputting your 6-digit code, and that's it.
It's so interesting. I know. Let's put a pin in that because we actually have another AMA scheduled in the next few weeks on Insurify, and I want to go over and drill down on your new NFT standard and all of your other services that you're going to offer. That kind of stuff, as nerdy as it sounds, excites me as a software engineer. I really I love that stuff.
Whatever floats your boat,
dude. Yeah, it's weird stuff that floats my boat. Just that, yeah. I mean, just look behind me. This is yeah. Anyway,
it looks like a fake library, but I know it's real.
Dude, it's not. And I have books stacked all around the room like some kind of crazy person. I hoard books, and anyway, I love it. One day I want to retire so I can just read all day, every day, and take care of my animals on the animal sanctuary with my wife. But that's someday. That's my pipe dream.
Future goal. Yeah.
Pipe dream. No pun intended. Ha ha ha.
Boom boom.
Pump it.
So all right. Let's see what else we've got. Multi-sigs with your wallets that's going to interact with your new NFT standard. The NFT standard will go all into that with the checks you have in place to prevent fraudulent transactions. You've got some interesting stuff there. We'll talk about that on another AMA.
Absolutely.
My next question is, would your project be able to survive if you, and these are risk questions, by the way, so this topic we're in right now is risk to participants. If something happened to one of the core team members, would the project be able to survive? Do you have continuity plans in place?
Yes.
Okay, even Ted.
Simplest way. Yeah, if something happened to Ted, then Bill's in a position to take over and carry on doing that part. So the actual main construction of the pipeline is actually going to be done by an engineering company on our behalf that will be paying. It won't be us hiring 6,000 people with machinery. We're dealing with, as you can see on the website, our preferred would be Worley.
Would be what?
So Worley Engineering. It's an Australian company.
Okay.
Yeah. It's under the home tab if you're looking for it.
Keep going down, just past the team, guys. There we go.
Yep.
Cool. All right,
so
good to know.
At the moment, they're our preferred, but it will go out to tender, obviously, to see what other companies want to.
And Ted, so I already know this, and the viewers might not. Ted has already secured the rights for this thing, basically the handoff of the rights for this thing to AMBO Pipeline Ltd, the company you formed here and are bringing Ted on board with. So Ted is coming with those relationships, those rights, and has that transfer already happened where you guys have that all locked down already? Those relationships and rights and everything are secure with your limited company.
Yes,
everything's been agreed in principle already, and everything's just waiting to go forward.
Yeah.
Awesome, cool.
Yeah, so we have everything sorted out on that end. There's no, we don't have anything conditional. The only thing remainder is really close down AMBO LLC on the state side, because like I had mentioned in the early 2000s, the US government was interested in funding the whole thing because AMBO LLC was going to utilize American steel, American workers, basically everything American. And that's why the government wanted to fund it. But we're not going to be doing that anymore. We're, like I said, privately owned at this point, and we're using private money. We can actually go out for the best deal for the money, as opposed to, hey, we'll use your country's steel, we'll use your workers, just to get one
pay over the top.
Yeah, and just we don't have to dive into it. If anybody wants to go read through the history of this region and everything, they can go for that. But is there any political risk left right now, currently, from the situation back in the 90s and early 2000s, with all that being involved? Is there any kind of political risk left for you guys and your company building out in the region in the current day?
No, and I would say it's very stable now to what it used to be during the Kosovo War.
Yep.
Everything is so much more stable there now. It's nice and easy. Can I just get you 1 sec? Go back to our website and go back to the About tab.
Mm-hmm.
If you scroll down to that picture, go back up a little bit.
Yeah.
That picture there, that was just to show you the impact of trying to get the amount of traffic through that one area. And it's like the meme you see on Discord where they're trying to get the hype train through the little tunnel.
Yeah.
Keeping it clean, that's what it's like.
Yeah. So you're portraying here that the governments of these 3 countries are very happy to alleviate this issue and back and support this pipeline.
Yes, because there's money coming to their countries from the pipeline at the same time.
That's right. Yeah, we're paying them tariffs, right? And instead of this going through the ships, I think they're VLCCs or ULCCs, depending on both. Okay, so depending on what they're running, depends on the day, all those things. Instead of the ships actually transporting oil and the transportation companies getting paid for it, it's now the countries directly getting paid.
They get a small percentage of the tariff of the profits.
Yeah,
I see.
They have good financial interest to do this.
That makes sense. So Bulgaria, North Macedonia, and Albania are the prime ministers and the political bodies governing those countries have given this the A-OK, and there is that tripartite.
Yep.
Yeah, tripartite agreement.
You can just say an MOU, a memorandum of understanding is the easiest way.
Yep.
Okay, and will that ever be made public? Because I saw it, and Alqasim, will that ever be a public document?
The MOU, yes. We're going to post it up on our website. I spoke with Justin earlier today, and the actual MOU, if you search deep enough into like the Albanian government documents, it is available. So we're just going to host it on our website. All 3 countries. So we're just going to host it on our website and not let people go searching for hours just to find if the project is real or not, because they would have lost interest by then. So we're just going to have that on our website. The 3 countries have signed. Ted has signed, and it secures the project rights going directly to AMBO and nobody else. And it although in there as well, it says that there's going to be other people involved with AMBO because like AMBO needs funding. They also need workers. So it's not specifically like AMBO as, let's say, 5 people, for example. So we're good. We got everything covered so far.
Awesome. So
I'd also like to say 3 wonderful, very beautiful countries to go to as well, just even as a tourist.
I would love to see this region at some point along the Mediterranean. It sounds. I've seen pictures and videos. It's unreal compared. I live in the swamp of Florida, basically. So like a Mediterranean landscape sounds really neat. So one day I'd like to go there. That brings me to a real quick question. What is the tourism risk to like Albania here with the town of Vlore? I heard there was some potential tension in the past with this, but you're saying that's no longer an issue, and Vlore gives this thing its blessing from a governance standpoint.
Yeah. I mean, in the past there was people weren't interested in it. They didn't like the idea of it, but since then they've already built a gas terminal. So it's the same as the oil pipeline. It's a gas terminal for export, and there's a lot of money that's gone into the local city, into Vlore. So they're very happy with it. There's obviously always going to be somebody that goes, I don't want this in my backyard.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it helps with their infrastructure. It brings money into the local government, brings jobs to the local region. It helps everybody in the long run.
Got it. So there's a lot of economic benefit for Vlore, the residents there, and Albania, and all these other countries involved. If you guys have differing political opinions on all that, put it in the comments below. Let me know what you think. And it'll be an interesting topic for debate
Absolutely.
For all this. But so that's no risk anymore there. And then the bear market, this thing doesn't really care. This project doesn't care about bull or bear market right now for the crypto market. It's removed from that. You're not relying on the price of like
No,
Ethereum or Bitcoin to survive, right?
No, exactly. No, exactly. The one thing I'd say though is because of where we are at the moment with the markets, because we're going to be giving you a return on your investment in 6 months, we're only going to be just probably getting out of the bear market in 6 months. So what a great time to get your money back into your pocket with minimum 25% profit on top.
Interesting. Yeah.
To go invest where you want to invest it.
So if you're like you were saying at the beginning, Alqasim, if people are forecasting 6 months from now to be the bottom, then it would be like the ideal time to get some liquid cash back into your pocket to then sink into whatever like you're thinking of. Yeah.
That's right.
Not financial advice, but Bitcoin, not financial advice. Anyway.
Yeah. Even if you miss the very bottom, at least you've received at least 25% back to, recuperate what you might have missed.
On top of your initial.
Yeah.
And like 125%,
And I know that doesn't sound degen enough for a lot of my viewers, but viewers, keep in mind how many rug pulls have happened out here, and factor in those losses in terms of your overall return. 25% in 6 months is darn good in the grand scheme of things.
Minimum 25%. If we hit the 5 million, it will be 50%.
And keep in mind, none of this is guaranteed. This is all super high risk, small business type stuff, plus blockchain exposure and a very large endeavor here. So keep that all in mind. But in terms of what we're used to risk wise, like this is, you guys have some real world stuff. Now, people have asked me, is this Ted guy real? I've never seen him on video with Alqasim or Justin. Will Ted come on video at some point and name drop you guys and say like, yeah, this is what's happening?
Yes, we're sorting that out this week. Justin is taking care of like making sure Ted's available, and then we're gonna jump on a Zoom or a WhatsApp with video, obviously, and then we're gonna have a conversation and just talk about exactly what's going on. And obviously that will be posted, just so there's no questions about it.
So you guys have answered basically my risk questions. What do you think is the biggest risk to participants in this project?
By not being involved.
I agree. Biggest risk is actually missing out. It's really the same answer. We're only doing this for 1 week. If you want to get
that
involved,
reminds me of going to a job interview and being like, my biggest weakness is that I work too hard. Like realistically though, what do you think a participant's biggest risk is here?
Maybe if the market decides to go through the roof in 2 months from now, their money would be locked into an NFT that's only not guaranteeing, but is forecasting 50% if we hit 5 million.
So opportunity cost.
Opportunity cost, really. But on the other end is if the market absolutely tanks, you've got a projection of 50% extra to buy everything on sale. The very worst case scenario is it won't be 6 months for the private marketplace to go live. It will be like 2 or 3 months additional. But at that point, like there is still batches of money coming in.
Okay.
Like you'll be able to exchange, but it won't be the full 5 million, for example. It might be 1 million a month. But at least there's something rolling. Like that's very worst case scenario.
So worst case scenario is that month 6, you might have to wait a little bit extra to recoup the entire
correct
125 to 150%. If the forecasted raise goes as planned.
You got it.
Cool. All right. And then, okay, so my last question, I guess, is usually, where do you see this project in 6 months, in 3 to 5 years, et cetera, et cetera. I guess for all of us wondering is, where do you see this project in 3 years? Because that's the most relevant to us.
Justin, how are you?
In 3 years, I would say we're getting pretty close to actual start of the operation and actually having oil flowing through the pipe.
Yep.
Okay. And in terms of us in the DeFi world participating at year 3, after that 20% per year reward has come to us, and you guys are sitting at the table in your directors meeting saying, what are we going to do with these NFT holders? Should we cut them loose, or should we keep paying them 20%? Or are we going to pay them a little extra for to show gratitude? What is your plan there what is your current thinking with that?
The current thinking is definitely to increase more than the 20% a year. You've got to show your gratitude somehow in the long run.
Yep, pretty much.
Awesome. So if possible, you guys want to pay back extra if it's feasible at that time.
Exactly.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, you guys, that wraps it up for my questions. You've covered all my basic risk questions here. We could drill down indefinitely and talk all night, but we all got other meetings to get to now. Yeah. So, do you have any parting words or anything you want to tell the audience before we wrap this up?
This is the best
Not on my
time.
side.
Okay, this is the best time for the blockchain to show that it's ready for big businesses to start transitioning into it. And the only way to show it is show up on the 17th until the 24th and make sure you get yourself an NFT that you're comfortable with.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Alqasim and Justin, for your time today. I know
Thank you
you've
very
spent
much.
a lot of time preparing this with me, and
Yes.
I'm going to have this up on YouTube probably within the next 24 hours. So everybody like the video, leave a comment. It helps YouTube algorithm. Let's get this out everywhere, and I will catch you next time.
Thank you very much, Alex. Have a great
Thank
day.
you.
See you soon.
Cheers.